The city of Luxor is Egypt's main tourist destination and has frequently been dubbed the world's greatest open-air museum. It contains more monuments and artifacts than any other place on the globe. Just across the Nile on the west bank is Al Ghurna, a village populated by around 15,000 people, only a short distance away from the Valley of the Kings and Queens. No one exactly knows when the villagers started living in the mountain area, but the Egyptian authorities have been trying to relocate them for years to excavate an estimated 900 ancient tombs which lie beneath the village.
This is an historical site. It's about 4 kilometers long and contains the tombs of ancient Egyptian nobles from thousands of years ago. The problem now is excessive use of water, which threatens the underground tombs.
The plan is to resettle some 3,200 families over the coming weeks in the new Ghurna village, which is being built by the Egyptian armed forces at a cost of £170 million.
For the better of Egypt or the Egyptian history, we have to get these people, for the antiquity people, to look after the area, and for them to get a better life for them for the new village.
The new village has all services: clean water, drainage, electricity, a school and a market, things that were absent in the old village. Some people have already received their new homes.
This is a much better house than our old one. Back there we had no sanitary system or clean water, nothing, and house was likely to collapse. This new one is very good.
Despite this, many villagers do not want to leave the old Ghurna. Some say the new housing is too small. Others complain that they're being forced to leave and will lose their main source of income, tourism. When the time for rehousing came, security officers were present as bulldozers started demolishing some of the houses amidst cries of protest from the inhabitants.
We want to stay in our homes. If they force us to leave, then give us similar housing, but they give us land. Where would I find the money to build on it?
This is unjust. Some people are getting new homes, others nothing. I have 4 daughters and 2 sons, and they want to give us a single house. What would I do with my children? If they give me something suitable, I'll leave. If not, I won't, even if they bring my home down with me in it.
This is the second largest resettlement operation in modern Egyptian history, after Nubian villages were relocated following the building of the Aswan High Dam in the 1960s. This latest move shows how their ancient heritage still affects the everyday life of Egyptians. Authorities say the reason for relocating the families of Al Ghurna is that they harm the ancient tombs that lie beneath them. Many villagers, on the other hand, do not want to leave because they consider themselves part of the history of the area and fear they will lose their livelihood from tourism by moving further away. This dilemma has continued for over 50 years now and is only one example of how concern for national heritage and tourism revenues clashes with the well-being of local communities. Karim English, Russia Today, Luxor. Following a court ruling, Egyptian authorities have released a Muslim cleric detained for almost 4 years. His case was of international concern, not because of the length of his imprisonment, but because of the nature of his apprehension. Hassan Mustafa Osama Nasr, known as Abu Omar, was kidnapped in an alleged CIA operation in Milan, Italy, in 2003 and flown to Egypt for interrogation. He was suspected of having links to terrorist organizations, including Al-Qaeda. Abu Omar left Egypt in the 1980s and traveled to several countries before settling in Milan in 2001, where he worked as an imam at a local mosque. He was briefly released from Egyptian custody in April 2004, but was re-imprisoned without charge under Egypt's emergency laws. Muntasir al-Zayyat, the cleric's lawyer, believes the reason was that he spoke out about his kidnapping.
He was detained under Egypt's emergency laws. He was not a suspect and no charge was brought against him. After a year in custody, he was accused of being a member of an illegal organization, a loosely based charge which was ultimately dropped, but he was again arrested because he spoke of his ordeal. The authorities now released him as they found no reason for him to remain in custody any longer.
Abu Omar himself was unavailable for comment, as a condition of his release was that he would not discuss events. The case has raised very little interest in Egypt, with no official statement and only a few independent newspapers publishing the story. In Italy, on the other hand, a court is considering whether to indict several suspects for his kidnap and rendition, including a group of CIA agents and Italy's former spy chief, Nicolo Polari.
The crisis has erupted in various European countries such as Germany and Spain. In Italy, there is investigation against 5 Italian intelligence agents and 26 from the CIA. This exposes the type of operation these organizations undertake. Abu Omar's case was the key of revealing that Guantanamo is not the only terrorist detention facility. The United States has used other centers in countries in Eastern Europe and the Middle East.
Similar cases to that of Abu Omar are under investigation in a number of countries, including Germany and Spain, raising increasing concern over the methods used to apprehend terror suspects. Despite Abu Omar being released, his relationship, however, with the courts has not ended yet. His lawyer pressed for compensation from the US and Italian governments. If the courts in Italy decide to indict the 32 suspects in connection with his kidnapping, this will be the first criminal procedure against renditions, one of the most controversial aspects of the global war on terror. Karim English, Russia Today, Cairo. Egypt plans to have an operational nuclear power plant up and running in the next 7 to 10 years, and with countries such as Yemen and Turkey expressing their intention to follow suit, analysts believe these moves will initiate a long-term nuclear power race in the Middle East. Karim English, Russia Today, Cairo. After 50 years of resting in this square, King Ramesses the Great is now starting his long journey west, where he will have a new home overseeing the Giza Plateau. Diving in the Red Sea attracts thousands of tourists each year. Beneath us lie some of the world's most remarkable coral reefs and marine life. Despite some minor incidents, the numbers of people coming here continue to rise and remains one of the safest and best tourist destinations in the world. Karim English, Russia Today, the Red Sea, Hurghada. The sun is Egypt's #1 commodity and is a bestseller at this time of the year. Tourists here are maintaining the warm spirit of Christmas and the New Year with a taste all of its own. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Karim English, Russia Today, Hurghada. Hello and welcome to Now News. Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh accused the United States of fueling tensions by refusing to lift economic sanctions that prevent local, regional and international banks from transferring funds directly to the coalition government. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas stressed that efforts were underway to improve the security situation and raised hopes of a deal to free an Israeli soldier and a BBC journalist who were captured. We have more details in this report.
Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh accused the United States on Friday of putting pressure on the banks to block the flow of funds to the coalition government formed last month by Hamas and Fatah factions.
A suicide bomber exploded a truck full of chlorine near a police station, killing at least 27 people in the restive western city of Ramadi in Iraq on Friday. Iraqi police said many of the victims were women and children, adding that 30 others were wounded. Only 2 of the dead were policemen, and another 2 police officers were wounded as well. The explosion occurred next to a market and residential buildings, as the truck contained many tons of chlorine and TNT, which were covered by sacks full of fertilizers. Meanwhile, Iraqi security forces imposed a curfew on the central city of Diwaniyah amid ongoing Iraqi-US military raids and clashes between US forces and Iraqi fighters from al-Mahdi's army. Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko and Prime Minister Viktor Yanukovych held talks Friday in an apparent attempt to resolve their deepening power struggle that has plunged the country into a political crisis. It was the second meeting in 4 days between the two men after Yushchenko issued a decree dissolving parliament earlier this week. The meeting came as thousands of anti-Yushchenko protesters demonstrated in Kiev's Independence Square, and others camped outside parliament to call on the president to resign. The demonstrations came shortly after the lower house of parliament in neighboring Russia condemned the president's dissolution order. That's all the news we have for now. I'm Karim English. Thank you all for joining.